Welcome to a beer line modeler video. This episode I'm going to give you an overview of my beer line. It's been about 5 or so years since I last done this, and the layout has changed. I'll give you a bit of a brief tour of the room that it's located in. We'll start with that. My beer line is located in an upstairs loft of our house. It is end to end from here all the way over to Lincoln, approximately 47 feet. Here we have my beer fridge. We have my 3D printer, my Elegoo Mars 2P, along with the curing station. That's where I do all my 3D printing. Here we have Humboldt yard. On the prototype, Humboldt served as the staging yard from all points north coming south to the last segment of the beer line. And my Humboldt yard also does the same. It is a staging yard that's fully scenic and can be switched like a real yard. Basically, all the cars here are made up into their respective trains to serve the breweries and other industries south of here. 3 yard tracks, we got a siding. We got the Milwaukee Road Beer Line Yard Office, which is the Walters kit. Custom painted and weathered. Behind that, American Model Builders Freight House, a wood craftsman kit, which really isn't prototypical, but it's always been a favorite building of mine, so I decided to put it on here. Going a little further towards the north end of the yard, we have a shed here from Blair Line. All sorts of junk and crud buried in the weeds, smoked ties. Behind this growth here, we've got an old fuel tank that's been left abandoned. And then also under the bridge here, under the North Avenue Viaduct, we got an old semi-trailer that's also been left and kind of forgotten about. This is my North Avenue Viaduct. This was the first scratch-built structure I did for the beer line. In fact, my first scratch-built structure, period. So, looking to the south of Humboldt, we come across the basic engine terminal. Just like the real Humboldt engine terminal, it was pretty Spartan. Not a lot to it, just very much the basics. You'd always find some Fairbanks Moore switchers sitting around and simmering in the sun. And occasionally you'll find an oddball switcher like this EMD SW1200 as well. Other fun things here, you got my throttle holders made by Sioux-Line Parts. That's Mike Polsgrove. This I painted with True Color paints, Milwaukee orange, red and white. I've got my Schlitz bottle opener. You got to have that on the beer line, along with bottle holders. You can set your beer down while you switch it at certain locations. Trains are made up here in the yard. When they exit, they cross this street here. I believe this would have been Humboldt on the prototype. And gone around the bend here and crossing that street, going to the heart of the brewery. And getting down here, we see the kids getting ice cream. You can see I've got static grass. This was something I put in this year for the to kind of freshen up the layout for the Indy Junction 2022 convention. I like the static grass. As you kind of just look around, it really adds a whole nother dimension to the scenery, so much more than ground foam. I really just applied it over my ground foam. In case you care to know too, my switch stands are from Lines West that I got last year, kind of before things kind of got quiet from him. I really like them and I love the targets. I feel like those as well have added quite a bit of dimension. Some have asked about track. Track is Microengineering Code 83 Flex, painted and weathered. My turnouts were built from fast track jigs with Code 83 Microengineering rail. They are positioned with a center spring, as you can see there. As trains cross from the area of Humboldt to the main brewery district, they go across this bridge here. I'll back up, you can see it crosses a window. The bridge is removable to get to the window for cleaning, and I guess if you want to jump out it, I don't know why, but that is removable, the window there. We get some fun parts of the layout. That's Trossman's Tavern, named after a friend of mine from college. Mater's, which I believe was an actual restaurant in Milwaukee. This is Dick's Halfway Inn, named after a real place in Minnesota. This was a Blair Line kit which actually was a tavern. I can't remember the name of the tavern. It was named after a model railroader. Really fun kit to build. Next to that is the Axum Jazz Palace, named after another fellow musician I've worked with before. Motorcycle repair shop. Some other buildings. And then we come to one of the signature structures. It's the spent grain silos, the Schlitz spent grain silos. That's built from PVC pipe. The head house is built from styrene. It has a foam core board inner core to it. And then just really spray painted it with flat white paint and then weathered it. Now across from the spent grain silos was the Pabst grain elevator. This is one of the tallest structures on my beer line. The scale 165 feet tall, 165 according to the Sanborn fire map. It also has a foam core or a foam board inner core with styrene sheeted on. Tichy windows. I use Tichy windows almost exclusively, some extra Walters parts. The overhead over the tracks here is built from scratch, as well as the stands holding it up. Its silos were built from PVC pipe. The head house built like the rest of the elevator with a foam board inner core and styrene sheeting on it. You can see then how the track continues south to the rest of the beer line, which is where we're going to go next. So the track comes up through this part right here. This is sort of an alleyway. It's just littered with debris and everything else, kind of like how the wind on the real thing might blow stuff into an area like this. All sorts of paper and torn up boxes and some old ties sitting there. So back up a little bit here. This is one of the most photographed spots on the railroad. That's the Schlitz A elevator. That's where the malt is brought and unloaded from usually box cars, occasionally a covered hopper. It's unloaded here for the brewing process. This is scratch built again with a foam board inner core, 40,000 styrene outer skin with details added on. These windows I got from an old Walters modular kit that I just had stashed in the parts box. This vent tube here built from scratch. The roof over the tracks here built from scratch. There's 3 Walters fire escapes going down the side. It is a scale 150 feet tall, which matches the Sanborn fire maps. In fact, all 3 of my grain elevators, what parts of them are on the layout, are all built to scale. And just like the real ones did, they tower over everything else. That is a cyclone dust collector that was built from photographs, from spare parts out of my parts bin. Across the tracks from the A elevator was the C house. The C house is where the beer was loaded into the dairy shippers dispatch bunkerless reefers. This building is open on the side. You can see I've got 4 reefers in there. Of note to make, the real building had 6 tracks, and each of those 6 tracks could hold 6 of these cars. And in my space, that was impossible, given just the footprint of the building, let alone the space to be able to get the tracks to branch out and go into the building. So this is a bit of a compromise to make. All of my beer crates and the pallets they're on were printed on my 3D printer. That's something else I did this year, sort of as an upgrade again for the Indy Junction convention. Just kind of a basic interior, but it gives you an idea of what's going on and what it's supposed to be doing in here. Really fun building to switch. This is sort of a generic busy part of the layout. A lot of old design preservation models, Walters models, some scenic accents, kits and collections along through here, just to kind of give the idea of a busy area. A fun little detail that I added on a kind of an improvisation is the digging out of this gas pipeline here. This guy's been down here for about the past 8 years. I don't know when he'll ever get done. He's got a lot of people watching and supervising him. I just basically dug out the foam. The part I dug out, I made my dirt pile. A lot of classic kits here. We've got a Woodland Scenics bulldozer, Woodland Scenics excavator and tracked front loader, Allied Forms Mac Model B dump truck. Background, we got a repair shop. Looks like one of the Schlitz truck is getting worked on. Hopefully get that back out so we can keep the beer moving. couple of other buildings on the end of this part of the shelf. We've got another Blair Line kit, Bull Salvage. Just makes sort of a fun filler in this area. Lots of things to look at, peer around and all that. This was another really fun kit to build. GC Laser gas station right next to him. And this also has some basic details added on the inside of the garage. I'll try and zoom in so you can see that. There we go. So again, nothing fancy or anything like that, just something basic to give the idea that there's a lot more in there than what you think. So heading further south, you can see the Pabst Shipping Center, number 30. That building also built from scratch and is more or less to scale. The Pabst Brewery was not on the actual beer line. It was about a couple of miles from the tracks. So the beer was trucked down and the trucks would go on this driveway and transload into the reefers. Now the beer cars for Pabst are a mixture of some of the bunkerless reefers that I've built as well as regular reefers. Now there's no ice loaded in because bottled beer is pasteurized, therefore does not need to be kept cold, it just can't freeze. So really the main purpose of an insulated car was to keep the beer from freezing. Summertime you could even ship beer in a standard box car, but you couldn't in the winter because the beer would freeze, and that would of course be bad. There's the structure here. I made the sign on my computer, just a very basic structure, but the shape and everything kind of denotes the location. Across from the tracks, I put in a background flat of Western Electric, and you can see some of the cable reel trucks. That's a GC Laser add-on to a Classic Metalworks truck. Got a couple of those. Classic Metalworks utility truck. All are painted in that Wisconsin Bell pea green. It's a lovely color. This also, Western Electric, kind of helps establish a locality as well. Back out a little bit here. One of these towers here, the octagonal Watchman Tower. These were signature on the beer line. I have another one down by the Pabst grain elevator, but this is a Walthers kit, and both of them came in one kit. It's was fairly easy to build. I put a lot of effort into painting and weathering to really make it look more than what it really is. It's a nice kit, and again, it's kind of one of those things that establishes an identity of the location. Going across over here, we got another bridge across another window. This is my passing sighting, so trains coming from the north will pull into here to meet trains heading south back to the yard. So it makes a fun operational bottle point section. As you follow it, you come to a railroad building here. This is a freelance scene I just kind of did for fun to fill the space. The Classic Metalworks Ford pickup truck, which I think is still available. Behind that is Commerce Power. Commerce Power is a kit bash of two Walthers Northern Power and Light kits. I scratched built this crane canopy. The roof is scratch built as well, and railings that I soldered together from piano wire. And this is something I kind of built from the photograph to kind of give it that signature look. The Walthers kit is loosely built or loosely based on this structure. So just kind of doing a straightforward kit bash I felt gave me something close enough. So we come around here, we get into the Juneau Avenue area. Now this part, other than the fact that I got rid of a lot of double track, is somewhat laid out like the prototype. The freight house here, which I scratch built, again foam core with a 40,000 styrene outer layer followed by plastruct brick and painted buff to represent Cream City brick, is approximately half the size of the real building. By my time, this era here, which is pretty much 68 to 1970, about as late as you can go before Amtrak, this building was gone, but I wanted to have it to switch, and it gives a facing point sighting, so you got to run around your cars when you bring them in to put them in here on the occasions when you do have that. but it's approximately half the size of the real building. I did cut out a couple of shadow box areas, make it look like there might be an interior. Very basic again. We have team tracks. Here you can see we've doing some lumber into these combination door boxcars. This track in the foreground sometimes gets reefer spotted for a onion wholesaler. Blatt's beer was also trucked down to this area and loaded into reefers. Next to that, and this is a new addition this year, is the Milwaukee Sentinel newsprint dock or newsprint roll dock. Scratch built entirely from extra parts in my parts bin. This was a $0 cost project other than buying some boxcars. There's nothing wrong with that. I zoom in, you can see the rolls of newsprint. They're still under outer protective covering or wrapping. They are not on pallets. I was told that if you put them on a pallet, they would crush the pallet because they were that heavy, which is believable. You think how much a full case of paper with like 10 reams in it, how heavy that is to lug around the office. You can imagine one of those rolls, which is like 5 feet tall and 3 feet around. That's going to be really heavy. Here they're loaded into a truck to be hauled off to the actual Sentinel. That's also another old Magnuson kit I built back in junior high. So backing out, we'll put those cars back. There. Last but not least, we have Lincoln Cold Storage Warehouse. This is also built from scratch. I used the Sanborn fire maps and other diagrams to make this building. The real one had 2 tracks. I only did one due to space. And it is a little bit compressed. But like the real one, I have a large Blatt sign on there. Helps establish the location. The Osler Brothers Furniture Company, which I've yet to do the interior to. Tichy windows. The signs were made on a silhouette printer and cut the lettering out of 10,000 styrene. On the back here, there's a little bit of a basic interior just to kind of give the idea that there's something back here. And that is pretty much all of Juneau Avenue. So there you have it. That's my beer line. It's not a huge layout. You could fit it in a 12 by 12 room if you connected the ends. So while not being a large layout, it's definitely kept me busy over the past several years, learning to upgrade and be able to take things to a next level. So I hope you enjoyed this tour. And thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like it and share it even. Anything to help my channel grow. That means a lot to me. In fact, that some people take interest in what I'm doing. I've never really considered myself a very talented modeler. I just try to pay attention to how others do things and learn from them and apply it to what I'm doing. And, you know, just kind of, it is truly one of the world's greatest hobbies and it is so much fun. Thank you again for watching. We'll see you on the next video.